Clark.
Yeah, we can.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Let's stand for the pledge, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everybody. All right.
Is that off? I don't want to get confused.
All right, now we got the minutes in the right chronological order. I'll go to the minutes for Wednesday.
Mike, Doug,
What's the matter?
can't hear you, you gotta go into the microphone.
I'll go to the minutes for Wednesday, December 9th, 2020, the remote in-person public hearing minutes.
I will make a motion to approve the 12/9/20, public hearing minutes with a couple of minor changes. Page 3, I just added a word, 100,000 people. Because it's not delineating 100,000 what. Page 5, I deleted the word now because there were too many nows in there. And on page 7, okay, and I added that, but I put it in blue, so it was, never mind, incorrect. So anyway, those are my only changes in the public meeting minutes.
I'll second it.
Okay, I have a correction on page 1, down the bottom where it says Doug, motion to approve the expended funds up to $250,000, and that what was left out is the word if needed in parentheses. I went back and listened to the tape that was done on December 9th, and that's been left out on the minutes.
And Doug, I forgot also on page 1, I added the amount we will have left to take the $250,000 out of the property, $15,000. That was not clear in that.
Yes, it was down further in the same paragraphs that I just corrected.
Right. It was not,
The amount we would have left in that fund would be $16,000.
right.
Okay, all right, we all set? Paul?
Aye.
Peg?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye. Aye.
Emily? Doug, aye. That passes. Okay, remote, in-person, public meeting minutes from Wednesday, December 21st, 2020.
I will make a motion to approve the minutes of 12/21, public, with one minor grammatical change.
Made a mistake. Made a mistake, Peg, Paul. Okay, I had no corrections on that one.
Okay, I had one minor grammatical change.
Okay. Anybody else for corrections? Okay, Paul?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay. Okay, put down okay. I left out the non-public for, Wednesday, December 9th, 2020, sorry.
I will make a motion to approve the non-public for 12/9, and there were no corrections.
Second.
Anybody else with corrections? Okay, Paul?
Aye.
Peg?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. That's it. Okay. I think that's it for the minutes. Now, that thing that's at the public comments and visitors, we're supposed to talk about a non-public, unless Earl wants to talk about it. Do you, Earl?
Basically, Doug, we can speak about that now.
Okay, go
Because
ahead.
he sent it to me, but I sent it on to the board, but there's nothing in there that folks shouldn't be aware of. Basically, the bill, I know we both talked to Ernie from the town, so Doug, you could give them a little background on that, and then I'll just join in.
Okay, the town, the other night I went to a meeting, another meeting down there, and I got brought into a non-public with, Chris Jacobs and the school board, not the selectmen, And they've decided to hold the deliberative session on February the 6th, Saturday, and then hold the general election on the date that has been scheduled. Now, if we decide to do something different, to go from those 2 days and hold it separate, they're gonna hold it, the deliberative session at the gymnasium on the 6th, where the school is gonna have to pay to do that, for those two, meetings. Paul, do you wanna come up here?
I can be loud.
Okay, be loud.
So, I think this will be my 6th or 7th year going. I think the most people I've ever seen come, even during negotiations and stuff, I was probably around 40 people. That gymnasium is gonna be more than sufficient to hold 40 people on the 6th. So I suggest we don't move it, we stay right on our plan.
So we wanna make a motion that we go along with the town on both dates?
No,
I second that.
Okay. Tammy, you have that?
Yes,
I'm sorry?
yes,
Okay. Paul and Emery, we're gonna follow the town on the 6th, and I think the 9th the other day, second Tuesday of the month.
correct.
Okay. Paul? Peg?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Emily?
Aye.
Aye. So we're gone with the town. Thank you, everybody. Now, if you have public comments about the issues, just raise your hand and come up and speak and give your name, please. Okay, Earl, you're up.
Okay, what we're going to do now is talk about model number 3, what that would look like if we would change. And as we talked about when we began, models were, we discussed what the models were. Right now, with no ado, I'm going to turn this over to the first one. What we're going to do is each person is going to present the facts and the data and the considerations for their aspect of it that they are in charge of, and then we can have considerations at the end. But after each one, it's free for discussion, and the board can ask questions and discuss it as me. So at this point, Nate, would you begin with financial considerations for model number 3?
Yep, sure. As you can see in the financial impact model 3 insert I put in the packet, as of the December 2020 expense report, it showed a balance, a bottom line balance of $690,536. When I checked the numbers on January 5th, it was actually went down to $542,921.
Nate, can I stop you there just for a second?
Yep.
Okay, he's talking about page 62 in your packet. We skipped all the financial stuff. You want to find it in your packet? Say page 62, please. Okay, go ahead, Nate. Sorry.
No problem. I compared that to last year, from January 2020 through the remainder of the year, June 30th, and the district spent $649,470 of unencumbered expenses. That, of course, doesn't include the board-approved expenses at the end of the year, like the paving and the computers and such. I have spoke with Mr. Qua about some possible additional special ed costs before the end of this fiscal year. Although we do have the trust fund available for the $250,000 that the board approved, if needed, my estimate right now is that we're only going to have about $100,000 at the end of the year, without spending any more additional for the COVID.
Anybody have any questions for Nate? No. No, you had other,
That Nate is clear, that would mean what we would need to go into model 3, which what would that be, Nate? What would model 3, according to the chart, what would the school have to come up
we would need roughly 245,000 out of the operating budget to cover the rest of the costs. Out of the 627,000 we've estimated it would cost, that balance we've taken out of 3 different grants. So we've got a big chunk out of it. But unfortunately, those monies are now tied up. And
But you got your hand up?
Emily first. I do, but he's frozen.
Oh, Nate's frozen?
I think so.
Nate, you're frozen.
we still need to come up. We're still short about 20.
We're losing you, Nate.
Is that better?
Say the figures again, Nate, please.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so according to the spreadsheet and all of the admin's research on it, we're about $245,000 short of opening with Model 3.
So,
Come on.
can I just yell?
Shout.
I can
Okay.
hear you.
Nate, you can hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Nate, can you clarify for me? So we're estimating that we're about $245,000 short to go back full-time based on the plan that the admin gave us today. Not, right? Is that, like these numbers are based on these recommendations of hiring?
Correct.
Okay, I'm just trying to make sure that I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
How much did we receive in COVID assistance? What was the total amount that our school system received for COVID assistance?
Page 88.
Yeah, this is in your packet.
Yeah. Page
We
88.
received 130,000 from CARES grant. From the SPSRF number 1 we received 98,400, and from the latest SPSRF number 2 we received 141,000.
But the S ones needed to be spent before December 29th. So we couldn't have used it for upcoming salaries.
Those are
That
already
was
spent.
money,
Yeah.
that was money to make our school environment safe for COVID, correct?
Correct.
So are you telling me right now our school is not safe and everything that we spent? Is our building not safe? After spending that much money, is our building not safe?
It is, I can respond, Doug. It is safe within the model that we are in.
Go ahead, James. We know who you
So
are.
the money that we spent was to set everything up for the hybrid model, Model 2. So having all the furniture we needed, the shields we needed, the cleaning supplies, PPE, et cetera. If we go to Model 3, we have to get additional furniture back in, we have to put additional shields, we have to issue more PPE, we'll need more cleaning supplies. So it's an additional cost to have everybody back. So no, right now we're safe. All the money we spent made it safe. We will need additional monies to get everybody back in, to have additional shields and PPE, have everybody here at the same time.
Question for Jan from me. So that means we'd have to order all this equipment.
Yes, and with the I'll get all the letters wrong, Jen, but our S2.
SPSRF.
We got more PPE, we did get more shields, but we did get a whole lot of additional cleaning supplies. We tried to, with all the funding we got, to pre-order as many things as we could.
So we'd have to find additional money for this additional expenses.
That's what Nathan was talking about, for money.
Okay, so, well, we pre-ordered computers in hopes of having that, which was $100,000. We haven't received those computers, correct? So we can cancel that, and there's $100,000 towards,
That's last budget cycle's money.
it was spent based on having our kids get an education.
Carl?
So by going hybrid and not having a full-time school here, not running the cafeteria and all that, how much money have we saved overrunning the school full-time. There must be some savings by not having the kids here full-time that we have banked a little bit. You're running half the program, you should be running less money to run all these programs that we could roll into forwarding it down the road.
Fortunately, you know, you look at it, we still had to heat the building, we still had to clean the building, our cafeteria workers, still all 4 of them work here, because they're not just making lunches for the kids that are here, but we're also delivering the food. So they're making, you know, the extra meals a day that are being delivered and picked up as well. So nobody's been working half-time, as well as we have the additional substitutes for the staff on ADA.
So in other words, people, I think, have been working extra. Everybody across the board. So we haven't saved any money.
Now, even though half the kids are here, we still have to heat the building, we're not half heating the building.
We still gotta teach the kids remotely too, the ones that are home.
We're teaching the ones here and the ones on remote kids.
One more
Also,
question. So what we're saying is, I just want to kind of summarize that for some, if, with everything we've done, if COVID were to be over tomorrow and there was no chance of this happening, we would not have the money to finish out the year?
No. If COVID was gone, we wouldn't have to we wouldn't have to hire extra teachers.
So most of it's all the teacher stuff and hiring extra staff and putting more stuff in?
Correct.
Okay.
It's the supplies and hiring additional staff.
Okay. I just want to make sure it's clear to people out there. That's not, people always ask the simple questions, there's a lot more to it.
The money which we, at this point, we do not have.
Thank you.
Doug, Paul asked 2 good questions. When Paul said we had half the students, we still, although we had half the students, we still had we had all those health areas, all those PPE that we had to deal with. So it was not like having half the kids without the health concerns. And going back to your other question, as Nate said, if we spent what we spent last year, from now to the end of the year, we'd have 100,000 left. If we stay in the hybrid for whatever time, and then we change on the dime, you know, when things settle down a bit, he's cautiously optimistic we would have 100,000 left. But again, that depends on what Rob Qua. We have a couple of other students that might need a different IEP. So as Nate said, there is a concern there that from what we could see on the horizon, that special ed is not going to be cost, not less cost. We have a strong thought that it's going to be more cost.
Okay, so we're spending more money and more of our teachers are spending more time and our students are getting less than half the education that they should be receiving. How does that make sense? Our teachers are working double. We are spending double the money and our students are receiving less than half the education that they should be receiving. Something is wrong and it needs to change. Europe and Asia have kept their schools open. The spread in the schools is less than 1%. It's 0.1% for students and 0.2% for the teachers. Why can't we look at those numbers and be realistic instead of throwing our children over? They need an education.
Anybody else? Anybody else?
I do.
Okay, well, go
Wait a
ahead.
minute.
Who's
I don't
that
understand what Melissa's saying, that they're not getting any education. I'm sorry,
saying-
they are getting an education. Is it because the kids are not all full-time in school? Is that what you're getting at?
I, along with all the other parents who have contacted me, have seen that our children are not getting the same education if they were in this building. They are not receiving adequate education right
I
now.
disagree. I disagree.
Well,
My
you can disagree
children.
all you want. You're the secretary right now.
So hold it.
Remember that, please.
Whoa.
Everybody,
Don't be
wait a
rude.
minute. Okay, everybody
Doesn't matter
refer
who
to
I
things
am.
refer to me, please. Don't
I'm
make it
part of
personal.
the public.
Okay? That's
So
what I'm
I
here
can
for.
say that. I think that they are getting an education. I'm sorry. Because I have a child with an IEP and he is doing great right now.
On whether they're not. I know I have 4 that are in the school system right now doing this. They are not getting what they would normally get. I hate to say it, I know we try really hard, but they are not getting the full education they would get if they would be getting full-time. Some fall behind much easier. They have to call in more to get caught up. They're trying to, you know, one teacher for all these students, you know, the parents have to be there to help educate. If they're working, they can't do it. There's a lot to it that is not getting done. And we're struggling to get by, we're getting through, but are they getting the same education that they would be getting 5 days a week? I don't think they are, and I have four different proofs that it could be a lot better. But on the other side of that coin, people do agree, and they have, you know, that it is going well. We got an email from someone that says remote works fine. So,
We had another one.
I mean, I guess it depends on who you are and how it works. If it's easier if you're home to help the students. If you have to work all day, it's harder to do that. So I know COVID's out there, and I know it's, you know, it could be a dangerous thing, but the students need to get the education, because if they were to go from a hybrid learning environment, for some reason move to a school that's a full-time environment, I guarantee you they're going to be way behind the other students in that school that's in a full-time environment. And I also like to say, it doesn't matter what our role is here today. That was an uncalled for statement.
Well, then she should have raised her hand instead of just speaking as if she was a board member.
I did raise my hand. I did raise my hand.
You control it.
Okay, no, look,
I think,
look, make all your comments to me, okay? Call me the names, okay?
But you're nice, Doug. We don't want to call you names.
No, I didn't, no. Everybody in this, we all have an opinion, and you're all entitled to your opinion, I know, but we're, how do you gonna say it? We're, more than, I don't mean adamant, everybody's trying to do a good job. Passionate, thank you, Mrs. No. Go ahead, Ellen.
I think what I want to say is that I think at this point, it's not really, we don't need to debate whether or not the kids need to be back in school. We know the kids need to be back in school. So what we need to focus on is how to get them back to school. And I think, I just want to encourage, we need to be, and I'm not implying that this hasn't happened, super creative. We might not be able to get them back full time and do it the same way that we did it before. We have to be willing to think outside the box. We have to throw out every option, which includes, and don't start to crucify me, no remote option. I mean, I'm not saying we should do that. I'm saying we have to discuss every option to get these kids back to school, and we have to focus on that. And we have to be flexible, and we have to put our, you know, agendas and feelings aside and really focus on, because it's our job to provide an education to students. That's what it is. So that's what we need to figure out. So I sort of propose, if that's okay, Doug, that we move through this. I don't know if the intention, I couldn't quite hear Earl at the beginning if he doesn't want us to say anything till the end, but I feel like I would rather say stuff as we go along. Is that?
Yeah, I did. I said in each area, we could talk about that specific area. Like right now, like you asked the question and Paul asked the question about the financial considerations, and that's what we're going to look at, what Nate gave us. And then as we go, we would go to each, you know, ask about each of the areas. And but it's okay. We're doing okay.
Yeah. Okay.
We're doing
so just to say, so I kind of like, that was like why my question to Nate was like, so you're saying this, that's a fact, like that we're this much short if we do what's here, right? So then we'll go through here and talk about, is that the only way? And it may be, I'm not trying to say that it's not. I'm trying to say, let's just use this time to figure it out.
Yeah, okay. Are we ready to go on to John?
Well, no, the question I want to ask the board, it's the board's decision what you want to do. I'm just up here. Do you want to continue on this, following chronological order? The board says yes, Earl. So John, I think you're up.
All right,
So that would
thank
be
you. John Safina?
That would be page 63, John?
Yes.
Okay. You have the floor.
So I think, it's not that we can't discuss it as we go along. I think when we were talking about it, that we would each present a plan and then ask questions about the plan,
Right.
clarifying questions, and at the end, we'll do the discussion. I think that's what we're looking at. So, 863 is the plan for, remote full instruction for Milton Elementary School. What you have is a good plan. I think it's a good plan. What we've done, like we did in, the spring and summer, like, you know, what you said is that we should be creative, and that's what we've been doing. We've been trying to think outside the box. Remember, our box has parameters. So we took the resources, we spread the resources then over different models, and we looked at it over a hybrid remote and full-in model for August. Now we're looking at it for full-in and remote and taking those resources. We've added to those resources with the grant money that came in, and we've also assessed, as Nate said, what the need is, that the further need that would have to come from the general fund. So we've assessed the need and what we're looking at, and that's mostly for staffing. So like I said, you have a good plan. I wouldn't present it to you if it wasn't a good plan. However, the question is it a doable plan? And is it an ideal plan? So partly is the resources. We are understaffed even at normal capacity because we don't have a Title I person with short paras for individual students. It's been very difficult to do hiring. So what we've been able to do, and Bob can talk about this, is how we split paras over different days. One day there was one student, one day was another. So we've been able to use our resources that way. However, we do need staffing. Staffing is a big issue. Our present staff, their health needs and their ability to stay in the building and not be remote, and the ability to hire. As Nate said, our resources are really spread thin financially. And the other question, is it an ideal plan? As far as education goes, I think that what we've done is we have created a plan. With the hybrid plan, we created classrooms with a lot more freedom to move around the room and education. But this plan creates learning spaces for students in a classroom. Very little movement around. It's going to be more difficult for elementary. We're going to lose our rug time, masking, so forth and so on. The other question to make it ideal is it a safe plan? If all the resources were in place, it would be safe. Is it the safest plan? No, it's not the safest plan we presented to you. As a result, even if we were to come back in, my concern is we're going to have staffing issues still. People are going to be getting sick. And during the hybrid model, we were able to cover any capacity in the quarantine.
Yeah.
And I think what's going to happen is we're going to go to more remote learning when we're full in, because our staff is going to be stretched so thin. We've been able to keep kids in school. I'm going to say, so we had a couple of times we had to go out at noon. One time we sent people, we didn't have to go remote at all. The plan has worked. We've had a good plan in place, and we've been able to stay consistent for the most part with our students. I have a fear that going in and out, I know I was able to talk to someone from Wakefield, recently a parent, and her frustration of having to go in and out because they were full in. My concern is the staffing, the infections, with the rate of infections going up. I think it's not the safest plan. And I'm concerned about staffing getting sick, I'm sure students getting sick. I only had to send home staff once to quarantine. And in that group was a person who was 7 months pregnant. And that was very hard for me to do that. So, I guess, however you vote tonight, you're going to make a lot of people unhappy. I don't envy you. I really don't envy you. So I guess my recommendation to the board is to take stock into the people and listen to the people that you're asking to enact the plan, and to listen to everything, because we have taken it seriously. Our goal has been to bring the kids back.
we presented a full-in plan to you in August. But it was with reduction in cases and a reduction in CDC guidelines. The CDC guidelines have not been reduced, and the infections are going up. We are higher rate now than we were in the spring. And I did put as part of my plan, I had a little PowerPoint presentation, the Milton bubble. And I know we look at our rates in Milton, but you have to remember, we have staff coming from all over New Hampshire and some in Maine. So on December 5th, I put together this for the December meeting. I had that, yes, we had 9 cases on December 5th, but if you, a lot of you go shopping in Rochester, that brought it up to 77. And then, if you look, you took all the residences from everybody, it was 535 total cases, active cases, on December 5th. I didn't use this on December 5th, on this early December meeting. However, I kept the data going. If I can find it right here. I've been keeping track all along. And if you use it, that's what I had done on the last page. I started going with total cases. And you think about where everybody lives in town. I mean, where all our staff live. This is the total number of cases and how they've increased. And it's by each state. So on December 5th, wherever all our staff live, that's 535 cases. And then on, these are active cases. We have 1,003, so it's double. And if you look at the last page, it has total cases. And the last time when I presented this to you on January 5th, it was 7,078 cases. Today it's 8,123 cases. So our bubble is pretty big. It's not just Milton. So, any questions?
Well presented. When we have something we can actually look at and read and stuff, it's a big help. Thank you.
Emily?
That was a presentation about COVID,
No, there was a presentation about the full industry.
but, I mean, so we're not gonna go through the plan that you,
I gave it to you ahead of time, and if you have any questions on it, or I could go over it, I can go.
well, I mean, some of the concerns raised on it to me are like, you know, like mask rates, if we go back, but, you know, to me, like, I guess that's what I'm about being creative, like, go outside for 3 mask breaks a day, instead of, or they can't do rug time. Well, they can do rug time if they take turns going on the, like, rug time, they can do rug time if they split the class to do rug time.
Well,
Like,
with some of the class, we could split it, but that's more staffing, so we have some kids.
But it's not
the thing is,
necessarily.
The rug time is, we need, some of the classrooms, we need to put the table where the rug is.
I mean, and also, like, with, as far as having, not necessarily, you can help a class, especially if we were able to keep them small, like, when you list, like, grades 1 and 2, is it possible to do a combined 1-2, a 1, a 2, and keep a combined 1-2 remote teacher? Like, that keeps your kids are at 12 kids per class, you still have a dedicated remote teacher. Like, is there a way, because part of what I'm hearing too is that, like, this bottom line is too big, so what can we do to the bottom line?
Part of it is I have, that was developed looking at, if you notice I did a staff update toward the end, because I want to show you being creative and thinking out of the box. I started with saying we needed 2 full-time remote teachers. One for 1 and 2, and one for 3, 4, and 5. We were not able, even though they were posted, we were not able to fill those positions. And considering the staffing needs, the health needs of people that are in our building now, I realized that we were not able to hire, so that's why we kept it a grade 1 and 2. We kept them remote because that's the way we could do it. Now, what my concern is, this is always a domino effect. I am looking at the possibility of more staff needing to be remote. If they need to be remote, Like, for example, Ms. Alessandra, who spoke to me before, she has talked about doing a 1-2 class. We have talked about that. But if I need to bring that teacher back in, I need to bring them into a different grade level for the rest of the year because of staffing. So it's always a moving target.
Yep.
And we are being creative every single day.
And as I said, if you see my, I used to,
Again, for my town report, when we had to look at COVID, and we had to look at the tasks and the masking, and the going outside, and this and that, that was very daunting. It kind of, it was really bad.
so what we would do is, when we talked about
Being creative,
and talked about
looking at it as if it was a
graduate class with a pandemic,
here you go, how do you recreate education and tap into the other side of the brain to be creative?
it made it exciting.
And I've told myself this several times.
As hard as it is, because this is not easy, you know, to do this hybrid. Nobody wants to do this in any other way than the way we always did it. But this is new.
We are redesigning,
Education,
and this is something we would never be able to do. Nobody would let us do this ever before. Hey, you're an educator, you know.
and you're an educator, so you know that we want, there are a lot of times when we want to just redo and do whatever we want and
Try to make it work for kids. We have the ability.
ability to be creative, and I made them tap into their creativity. So, Emily, do you have more questions for his proposal, or
I mean, so I'm just saying, like, those were some of the things that I thought, is there another way to
You know what, there are a lot of ways that we are still looking at. I'll tell you, one of the things about this plan that I don't think is as ideal, over the summer, Mary's here, she could attest to this. We worked with every single staff member. We had an education plan, we had people on each committee, we had the ability to work over the summer, we had a representative committee to come up with an instructional plan from each grade level. They took that back to the rest of the teachers on that grade level. There was input from every single teacher, and we created a great plan. That's why I think we've had such a successful plan. There will be, if we had the ability to go back in and the resources to go back in, the teachers will continue to be creative because their ideas are ones that made this plan great. Started with Tracy Kimball, going to give a shout out to Tracy Kimball, came up with the idea of going up by bus routes to allow us to do our hybrid, the purple and gold groups. It was a great idea. The teachers came up with fantastic ideas, and they're working so hard. And I just think that I need you to hear that. And hear that they are working hard, and this is not ideal. But I will say that I have seen, I wouldn't say great growth, but I've seen some growth on the WEA. I'm not ready to present that. I'm going to wait for the winter scores. But there are some kids that are doing pretty well. So.
Right, but I need you to hear that we've never implied that the teachers are neither creative nor working hard.
Of course.
Never.
Well, and I appreciate that. I just want you to know that we are thinking outside the box. This is all outside the box.
Right.
We didn't have a class on pandemics and graduate work.
I think the best place for the kids, and I agree with Melissa and everybody else, we all know that, the best place for our kids, our students, is in the classroom full-time. But we got issues we have to deal with.
No.
But I think as a nation too, when you look at a lot of what people are saying, a lot of people hear this on the news all the time, we need to get our kids back in school. What they are referring to is not just full-time in school. There are many districts in New Hampshire and across the country that haven't even stepped into a classroom since March. Summersworth, I know. My niece and nephew go there. They haven't been in school at all.
Since September.
Since March. Rochester came back full in. And I will say, they have those numbers too. Rochester came back full in. And, you know, they were like, ooh, they were looking at it coming back full in. They spent a total of 37 days in school before they went out. We've been in school this is Fran here, have been in school 64 days. So each cohort got 34 days in school. So going full in doesn't mean we're going to be there full in every
Right.
single day.
I hear that a lot, though, that the concern is that we'll go back and we'll come out. But the reality is we already have a system in place for coming out. And if we don't try to go back, we will never know. And like, even, like, I have friends in Rochester, and despite the fact that it didn't last, it was really helpful while it lasted. And the remote learning isn't going well for their kids, and it has created a huge strain, and they can't wait to go back. So the reality is, those 37 days were a prize for my friend who's a single mom of 4 kids and works full time. So, and for her kids for learning too. So I understand, we don't know. We do not know until we do it what will happen, but we already have a plan for if they have to come home. No one can guarantee that they're not going to come home. But I
think it's more of a, and I hear it from parents. I think it's worse for parents to have to get a call the night before and saying we're going fully remote. And this is why we were trying to be preemptive with the 2 weeks and give, and I know it's not ideal. I really don't like it, you know, but I have to tell you, there's a lot of good feedback from parents on the remote. I know there's a lot of things going on, and we're reaching out to parents. We're trying to help as many parents as we can.
Okay, I'm going to speak as a parent. It would have been easier to have them in school and get a last-minute phone call. Lindsay, you're a parent.
Can I ask her to come up to them? I got heck for not having people do that. Sorry.
Lindsay Thompson.
You're right up there and yell at her.
In there,
Yell at me.
I'm not yelling.
Go ahead.
I won't yell at them, huh? I work for the school district, and I also have a second job. Now, going remote is affecting my school job. Because I can't work 2 days a week. So,
Yeah.
I need my kids to be in school.
Okay.
And I've already lost my second job. Because of that.
Doug. Thanks, Lindsay.
Yeah. Thank you very
Doug.
much.
Doug.
Were you done, John? You come back up. I'm sorry.
Oh.
Go ahead, Donald.
No, my concern is, my statement being is, if I had the money to put my children in a private school right now, they could go to school full-time in a small environment. One of the things that Milton has always prided themselves on is we are a small community. We have about the same amount of students in a classroom that these private schools have, and they are functioning. And their teachers make less than our teachers. So why should I have to, as a parent, pay $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 a year on top of everything else to have my kids can go to school full-time and get an education? I can't afford to lose my job. I can't afford to hire a tutor. And a lot of parents here cannot afford that.
Well, I think that one of the things that, and I put this in the plan when we came back full in, that we took it as a charge is that we had to provide an education for students. It was difficult for us to be able to do that and provide normalcy to the country again at the same time. I just, with all due respect, it's just there's a lot of issues that you're bringing up, and I don't have any data not that I want to respond, but I know there are stories like that, and we hear them, and our teachers have the same stories. We're doing the best we can. We feel that this is, I mean, I'm not going to go into a recommendation, that's later, but we are not making a choice to do hybrid. We have chosen before, we chose and urged the board to go hybrid because we felt that was the best solution and the best way we can educate our kids, considering the resources and the staffing needs and the size of the classrooms and the amount of PPE and all that stuff that we had, and figuring all the guidelines. So that's where we're at. We all want to be back in full. It's not fun. This is not easy. It's very difficult to do this, whether remote or hybrid. There are, at times I've had to, because I have secondhand exposure, I have to sit in my office just in case, because I was near one of the staff members that went into quarantine, which was, a contact of a contact of a contact. So I didn't have to quarantine, but, it ended up that I had to. I didn't want to have to be like, oh, Mr. Safino was every single classroom that day. So I find myself, within that circumstance, I have to stay in my room. So there are a lot of factors to consider, and I think that we have, and I appreciate the stories that, and all these different things, that I've heard them, and I understand that, but we are all in the same boat, and we look at what we have, and what the ability we have, and what we can do. And I don't know what's the size of, I know St. Elizabeth Seton wasn't a very large school. I don't know what their, and I'm just bringing that because it's the closest one that I know of that's private. I know I worked in private schools. We didn't have large classrooms. So I don't know what their class sizes are, what their spacing is, because I know that they probably had more buildings. For example, I knew one school that ended up going hybrid, Sanborn Regional High School. That building, if you've ever been there, I think we could fit MES into their lobby. It's so big. And their population is low. When I worked in Fremont, they wanted the Fremont kids because they needed to get capacity to that building. And then what happened, was they wanted to, consider bringing the 8th grade. So it is another school. They have different resources. They have more space. I know they have more space. And they went hybrid. They went remote. It really depends. I mean, it's just trying to give you the facts and what we feel we could do, safely.
Paul?
Just a question for John, because I think it fits John more. Since going hybrid and remote and all these things since March, especially the elementary school, have you noticed, I don't know if you'd be able to notice, any difficulties in the younger kids being able to socially interact more? I mean, not having kids around and developing in that way, and sports are canceled, and extracurriculars are canceled, and they can't see anybody, and they can't develop, and they can't, that social interaction. Have you noticed any change in that? Has there been anything?
I think it's been better. And I tell you, I haven't talked to parents recently, but some of the parents have said to me, and this came up at a PTA meeting, that I know it's the beginning, I'm sure some of their opinions have changed, but they like the smaller classrooms. They're like, I got to meet kids I've never met before, really got to know. And we haven't had any bullying issues, any discipline issues. They've been kind to one another, they've been helpful. First graders, second graders, they've used their masks, no problems. They play on the playground, they interact. Did I send you my purple pages? I'm gonna probably have to send that out to you. The last one, December 23rd, I had a video I put together. It was on recommendation for the PTA that showed the kids, and it's on my laptop. I have a picture of the kids dancing on the run. They were able to space out. I think that when the kids are there, they are enriched, and they do get to go out and play. The weather's been good, so Mr. Shaw's been able to take them out. They've only really needed to use maybe a little bit over half of the gym, so he could find space to bring kids down there, smaller classes. We were able to do things for Red Ribbon Week, and October we have the fire department came. It's been business as usual, and I think the kids have been very happy. And there was a video too, and I'll send this page again, just in case I didn't send it, that had a video. Mrs. Anderson is fully remote. We have a TV in the classroom, and 2 cameras are with her. The kids will go up to the TV. I love you, Mrs. Anderson. They talk to her. She's built a great relationship with the kids remotely. And the kids were just sitting there fascinated and listening to her. They've really done a great job. But maybe if I can have Mary Ann speak to the survey you did, the social emotional survey? You want to talk to that? Okay, we did do a survey, and she could tell you what that was, to look at the kids where their needs are.
Hi, Mary Ann Doan, school counselor for MES. We did a DESA survey, so did Newt. And our survey came out pretty much, most of the kids are average in their social emotional learning. During that survey, all the teachers
basically filled out the survey on each student individually, and the remote teachers did their remote kids. So, the survey basically, there were a few kids in the at-risk range that we're working with and using the Choose Love program and also the program through DESA to work with their social emotional learning. But on the whole, most of the kids were average or above, and they are very happy. All the lessons I've done with the Choose Love program, the kids are excited. They're, you know, active and participating in the lessons, and they seem to be really happy. And like Mr. Stepien said, these kids are getting to know kids they would never be friendly with. You know, they only had their little cliques when they're in big groups. Now they have their class size of 10, and they're all getting along. There is no discipline problems. I haven't really had, I've only dealt with, I think, one student who was unhappy. And that's really rare to have gone through this amount of time. And they're happy. They like each other. I'm on playground duty 6 times, and they're all getting along. They all play with each other. They all, you know, interact. There's nobody separate from anybody else, and there's no little cliques going on. They're playing as a whole group. They're really getting to know each other, which is, I think.
Thank you.
Peg?
Yeah,
Peg?
I guess maybe, if can anybody hear me?
Yeah.
I think the days that these kids are in school, that they are getting the social/emotional needs met, because they are with other kids. On the remote days, and if they're home, fine, they're not, but it's not as if we are totally remote and they're not getting any interaction with kids at all. And I like the idea with small classes. I mean, I taught regular classes, and then I taught Title I math with small classes. And there is a big difference with those smaller classes, because they tend to get along better, because they're not with Johnny or Mary or, you know, the other person in their clique. So I don't know, I mean, I feel that they are getting the days that they're in, they're doing their social, emotional, they're having their social, emotional needs met.
And a lot of teachers are doing class meetings with the kids, and the remote teachers are doing class meetings. So those remote kids are getting together on Zoom or whatever platform they're using and learning about each other there also. So yes, they may be fully remote, but they're still doing, you know, kind of group meetings and things like that. And a lot of the stuff that I've done with the kids, I post, or I put in, you know, attach it to a purple page, or I send it out with the teachers so that they can do things at home. The last lesson I just did was, have you filled your bucket? Has to do with kindness, and has to do with being kind and acting kind. So I sent out a whole video sheet, and I sent out activities, and I said, you know, it was, basically it was read on YouTube by the author. So I said that was great, because the author told you about the book, and the kids, you know, are just doing the bingo cards and filling out how they're kind to each other and their family. So they're also including their family too. And I think somewhat of, you know, this time too, it has been a lot of family time. And for the most part, I'm not saying this always, but I think, you know, families have somewhat gotten some closer. And I know mine personally, we do game night, which we never did before. So there's been a lot of community things happening.
But if I could just, I want to wrap up, because one of you wants to I haven't been here in a while, it's nice to not wear pajamas for a board meeting, but just to wrap up, I just want to say, I think that we all want to be back in full. We feel the hybrid, well, I'm not going to say recommendation, but what we're doing now, I'm not trying to defend one or the other, but the idea is to go back in full. But I want to, one last support about what we're doing right now, whatever you call it. You said about the social emotional and about the discipline. It's not just because small enough class we could pick them with stuff that, you know, you could know, you get your eyes on it. It's not that. It's the fact that if you look at what discipline theory called control theory, and it's about climate, and it's about having their needs met. So students are having their academic needs met, their social emotional needs met, their food, and that they're learning and they're feeling successful. That will bring your discipline rate down to nothing. So I think that's all part of it. It doesn't matter how many kids are in the classroom. I've been in a room with one kid that's freaking out because they're angry or their needs are not getting met. Their needs aren't getting met. Not ideal. Even the full-in model, I believe, is not ideal. It's not an ideal situation, but we are meeting their needs. Thank you.
Go.
Yeah, this is
Emily?
John, it's not really a question. I just wanted to say that, like, I definitely think nobody loves a small classroom better than I do, and my kids are homeschooled. I obviously don't think you have to go to school to have social, emotional, I mean, maybe they're not, maybe they're weird, but I think what matters the most to me, and I don't want to speak to the rest of the board, is I'm like more interested in like the brass tacks, like what you have here we can't afford, so let's like get like that little stuff, like how do we go back? Do you know what I mean? I think everybody is doing a good job with what they have, but like, you know, the plans that we've been given, like that's what I sort of sat over there and made notes and asked like specific questions because that's my job. Like I can't just go, okay, you know what I mean? No, I'm just saying in general, like that's sort of more what I'm looking for is like that.
Well, I think we do have, this is a plan to come back in full. We also have another plan to come back in full. And it's about the rate of detection and staffing. I think that's where we're at. That's a big piece of it. And once we see an easement of guidelines and so forth, then we should be able to start working that way. It's just that when we first started talking about this and doing this plan, the infections have gone up and up and up. There's nothing, so we're not even sure if this is exactly enough that we're gonna need. So, I mean, things keep changing in the world, so.
Okay, I think, okay, next we have Jan, and what we have is we were tasked with coming back to the board with what full in would look like. We'll go through each of the departments, then at the end, additional considerations or ask each of the departments. But what we're looking at is what will the middle high school look like if we're full in? The intent was with MES, what would MES look like? John and Jan have drawn up, measured out, put in desks. Everybody spent a lot of time showing the board and the community and the parents the snapshot in time of what this is going to look like. So at this point, Jan, could you speak to what it would look like for the middle high school to be back in full?
Not gonna answer them anyways.
Yes. At first, I want to say, I think we're all in agreement that the best thing for the kids is to be back here in kindergarten. That's what we all want as well. And that's actually the easier model because the teacher's only working with one group of kids in front of them at a time. Right now, they're working with 3 groups of kids. They have the ones right in front of them. They have the ones that are at home that they're working on assignments and putting resources in Google Classroom for. And they also have a group of remote kids that they're also having to change their lessons so they can not teach them right in front of them, but they're teaching them now through a camera. So right now they're working with 3 groups of kids. It is easier to work with one. So I'm going to kind of go through what we can do with everybody back and then what some of our limitations are with everybody back. So first thing, right now we've been letting people in between 7:10 and 7:15. All the middle schoolers have been coming to the cafeteria to get their breakfast. The high schoolers pick theirs up in the hallway and they go to class. So that will be similar, but we can't fit all 6th, 7th, and 8th graders in here at the same time in the morning. So the 8th graders will come in and get their food. They will have to go to class. Keep the 6th and 7th graders here. High schoolers will still pick theirs up and go to class. So it's just a little bit of change in the morning there. We will have to make sure the buses are hanging on to the kids until the bus in front of them has gone on so we don't have a big pile at the door. But we can do that. Lunch sizes. So what I did after we got our full survey responses back, there were 9 parents we didn't hear back from. So I put those parents in as what their child currently is. We went through all of the rosters starting February 1st and put in, because it was second semester.
Every teacher, every roster, we put next to the kid, would they be remote, would they be in school? We still schedule, say for the teacher, this period would have this many kids in front of them, this many kids would need to be remote. We looked, could we move kids around, give them an open period where they could still teach a remote class or not? Sometimes you have teachers teaching 5 different classes, we can't combine classes. And we looked at who would be in the lunchroom, who would be in each classroom, that sort of thing. So after getting all that done, that's how we came up with this. So our lunch sizes aren't terrible.
6th grade, 2 to 3 per table, 7th and 8th grade, 4 to 5 per table, 9th and 10th, 3 to 4 per table, 11th and 12th, 2 to 3 per table. The largest one would be our 7th and 8th grade. If you notice the way these tables are set up, if you had 5 at one table, you would have 3 right next to each other and then 2. That would be our largest lunch. We would still have 4 minutes between lunches for the cafeteria to clean.
They're gonna have to clean more tables, so they'll have more kids in there, but they still think they'll be able to get that done.
For procedures, all of our PPE and cleaning protocols will be the same. We might have to adjust our passing times, have our middle schoolers leave period 1 and go to class first, and then have the high school go, and things like that. So we might have to change a little bit of the hallway traffic, just to keep some of the crowds down in the hallways. Our content classrooms, when I looked at all of those, they range from 10 to 20 students. So then the next thing we did was Bob and I moved furniture around to give you guys some pictures as to what they would look like. So on that, page 75, that's looking at a middle school classroom with 18 students in it. The 2 that are sharing a table, it's 3 feet nose to nose. So my nose to the kid's next to nose is 3 feet, put the shields in between. And then between the tables front to back is 4 feet. And so that's, I stood in the corners as far as I could to take those pictures. So that gives you an idea what the room would look like with 18 students in it. One of our middle school science rooms will have 20 students. So then we set that room up. They're also 3 feet nose to nose on the same table and also 4 feet front to back, table to table. So that again gives you what that room would look like. Again, as John said, there won't be as much moving around. We've been able to have kids get up and take a mask break. If they can get 6 feet away from somebody, they can take it off for a few minutes. There's not 6 feet to get away from anybody in these rooms, so kids won't be able to take mask breaks within a classroom.
High school, the biggest one is 18. Those desks are in the basement. We didn't carry 18 desks outside back down again. We went to 5. But I did put the chairs up, so that gives you an example that basically would be 6 rows of those 3 desks like that. It's 3 feet between the chairs, not between the desks. So from the edge of one chair to the edge of another chair is 3 feet, and then from the back of one chair to the back of the chair in front of it is 4 feet. So again, we're keeping the minimum 3 feet, but you can see there's no room really to move around after that. So there's 18 in that. Students would still have an assigned seat. We'd still have our seating charts so that we could do our contact tracing if need be. Now the key there is we've been able to keep kids in the classroom pretty far apart. So when we've had a positive case and did contact tracing, it really was just the kids sitting next to them. Or we sometimes moved our bubble out and the kids front, behind them. So really it was like maybe 3 kids around them that would have to quarantine. The way this is set up, it's going to be about half the class will have to quarantine. So just know if we have a positive case, there'll be a lot more people that will have to be out for close contact. Students will still use their own supplies, lockers. What we might have to do, because what we did is we did a gold student skip the locker, purple student skip the locker, gold person, so that there was always at least 3 feet between lockers. Now there would only be 1 locker, so we might say period 1 to 2 only gold kids can build their locker. Periods 2 to 3 only purple kids can build their locker, things like that. Hey, do you have a question?
Yeah, I just have a real quick question, being a science teacher and looking at the science setup right now. Will they be able to do any kind of lab?
No, that's right under instruction. That's my next area.
Oh, sorry, well, you go girl then. I'm sorry.
All right, anything else so far? All right, instruction. So we will be able to provide remote instruction to some other classes, and it would be on alternate days. So for example, an English teacher who has, let's say, 11th grade English and 12th grade English, should only have 1 period to teach the remote. So they would have it like instruction on a hybrid model, like 11th might have their instruction on Monday, Wednesdays, and 12th would have theirs on Tuesday, Thursdays. So she would have a period available to teach remote, but the kids wouldn't get it every day. They get it every other day. But I have the next stage for classes that we can't teach remote because we don't have a teacher available. The other thing is, and it's my last sentence there, Peg, science and food classes may not be able to conduct labs because they're not going to be able to maintain 3 feet between students at the lab station and at the kitchen station. So it'll change how we do instruction. Right now, she is able to spread the kids out and do labs, and same in the kitchen, but we'll have to change the way we teach because we don't have the space to do that. So the next page, it looks like this chart on page 77. I put remote yes, and after I printed it, I thought maybe you don't know what that means. So those are the classes that we can teach remote. So we will have the content classes for our middle school. They'll be able to get it again on alternate days. So they might have 6th grade ELA on Monday, Wednesday, and social studies on Tuesday, Thursday. But we can teach those. So those that are listed there, we can teach. The ones that are on the right, we cannot. I do not have a teacher. A teacher does not have a period available to teach these classes. So right now, our remote middle schoolers don't take unified arts. That would have to continue. However, our high school kids wouldn't be able to do unified arts remote either, because those teachers, again, they teach 5 different classes. We can't combine the classes. They can't do both differently.
Have we given any consideration to doing synchronous remote?
That's very difficult for some of the teachers to do. We do have one teacher doing that, but to try to have the camera, and then you're walking around, now the kids there can't hear you, you can't see. You know, if we had a pair available, I can kind of watch it and say, someone raise their hand, but we don't have pairs available. So yes, we have given consideration to that, but the teachers, it's difficult unless the teacher is frozen in front of their computer, you know, trying to teach both to the kids on the computer and the kids in front of them. Yes. If I could hire a high school math teacher and a high school science teacher to work with just remote kids, then that would open up some of those periods. I think we still couldn't do math on Tuesday. There's 6 math classes. They only would teach 5. So even if I hired somebody, I can't hire somebody to teach 6 different remote classes. But it would at least cut some of the numbers down. The other thing is some parents, when we did the survey, chose to have their child come back from remote because their child is struggling with remote. But we also had parents whose kids were here in hybrid who said, if we go fully back, my child's going remote. My numbers would change, not drastically. I have 75 remote students right now. That increased a lot after we had our positive cases November, December, and it would go to 79. So I'd have a group remote coming in, and then I'd have a bigger group that's in hybrid that would be going out. Again, the big jump for us, December 9th, there were only 9 cases in town. As of yesterday, there's 27 cases in town. Those are active cases. We've had 132 total cases in Milton now. So we went from 6 to the teens over the summer to 20 in the fall to we're at 132 now. So staffing, high school math and science to work with remote kids, at least 2 more paraprofessionals. I need an additional 1.5 permanent subs just for my current ADA requirements. So one of the long-term subs that we had in December is last week, next week. Another one is last week is the end of January. So I'm already trying to just fill the positions that we have. I do know we have some staff with medical issues whose doctors have allowed them to stay in the building with us in hybrid, and the doctors have already told them if they go fully back, I'm yanking you, you're gonna have to work remote. I don't know what I'll do then. The only other thing is some students have started to share concerns with us because they know we're talking about going back. So some students have said, well, I've watched my friends' schools go to fully open and then they're remote again, and the cases are still rising. It's going to be too crowded. So just know that our students also have a little bit of level of concern about being here. Questions?
Anybody?
No.
Anybody else?
I know, my main question was about if we could help sort that somewhat by being synchronous. You know what I mean? But some of the hiring issues. And also, have we given, I don't know, maybe you might already do this, but like, if someone has to go home, can they teach remotely? Do you know what I mean?
They can teach remotely, but I need a body in the building supervising the children.
Right.
So they can't sit by themselves as well.
Mm-hmm.
They sit at home.
Anybody else?
Thank you, Jan.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, I guess, right up there.
I didn't know.
Don't be afraid.
Lots of comments now.
Can you, please?
Taxpayer approach. My question for both schools and the school board would be, are we noticing any drastic changes in academic results at like the end of quarter versus previous years? Like, is there a higher pass fail rate or anything like that? Or are we pretty on par with traditionally what?
For us, we've seen some students be more successful with remote. They told us it's because they don't have the distraction of their peers. The number of kids failing in class hasn't changed, but instead of just failing 1 or 2, those students are now failing 3 or 4. So the students who are struggling more.
Based on NWEA, looking at the growth from year to year, language arts was close. I mean, it wasn't that much of a drop. It was a little bit of a drop, but it was close as far as growth from last fall to this fall. Math was more of a drop. However, that is not just because of the hybrid. Last year, we implemented a new math program. So when you implement a new program, teachers are learning it, kids are learning it, there's always going to be a drop. Then we went remote. So that was it's hard to really judge the math split, but language arts we did pretty well.
Thank you.
Okay, we're on that. That was a very good point to take a look at. I think that one of the main things that I'm not going to take a lot of time just in answering Al's question, Jan and John did, but I think that the consistency of the fact that they have an uninterrupted, a less interrupted in-person instruction has helped. I think that when you flip-flop and change on a dime from remote to hybrid to full and whatever you're doing, the more changes you do in whatever you do, it's going to affect how things are for them in school, how they succeed. Okay, at this point, I'll turn it over to Rob. Rob? Qua?
Thank you, sir. Good evening, everybody. So yeah, I mean, I can just only echo the sentiments of everybody in this meeting, and we as a department, a special education department, want to get back to full in-person school just like normal, more than anybody. We have been working against this whole COVID-19 pandemic since the start. Even in March, we weren't totally at 0 students in the building. We were finding ways and finding staff to get some of our students in for the services they desperately need. We were able to expand that over the summer and see a lot more kids. And over the course of the hybrid model, we've actually been able to maximize our resources to ensure that we're delivering not only minimum IEP requirements, but as much service and support to each student according to their needs as we possibly could. My report starts on page 79. As you can see, we have a lot of staff that are already working remotely, and that under the hybrid model works for us very well. We know our kids are in good hands when they are on their non-in-person days. We also can kind of double our paraprofessional capacity by having paraprofessionals work with different kids on purple and gold days. And so that has allowed us, despite not having a full buildings or a full department's worth of staff actually working in the building, to continue to provide those services like I was talking about. If we were to go full in and we did not get back the teachers and the paraprofessionals that are working remotely, we would just simply be left with a shortfall that would mean we are not in compliance with IDEA. There are just too many man hours to work between all the students and the paraprofessionals and the case managers that we would not have in the building for us to effectively provide the services that we would need to provide. We are going to be down to 1 case manager per school, elementary, middle, and high. We have been lucky enough to keep the preschool running under normal conditions. And the partner program has also been running with kind of maximum in-person support. But after that, it would, as I said, just lead to us having to make some really tough and impossible decisions about services that we could no longer provide to students, despite the fact that they're legally required and the fact that those students need them. I also think that critical staffing shortage, we're going to run into something else. Besides IDEA, we would also run into the ADA, because I believe we would lose even more staff to an environment that has, much more crowded hallways, much more crowded cafeterias, much more crowded classrooms. There are staff that have been really courageously hanging on because they care about providing that in-person support. But to increase the risk level would create a situation where they would no longer feel comfortable. Their doctors would no longer feel comfortable allowing them to continue to work. And so an impossible situation would at that point just get worse.
Does anybody have any questions for Paul? I guess it was clear, but thank you. Do you have anything more to add?
Nope, that's it. I just, again, can't wait to get back to normal, and I'll be the first one to pile all that PPE up in the front yard and spark it up.
You got to get a permit.
Yes, sir.
Okay, next up, Bob.
Good evening, everyone. My requirements or needs are certainly very short. It really relates to personnel. The school board did approve a full-time substitute custodian back in September. I have not been able to fill that position. I currently have one long-term sub working due to a resignation that we had last year. And one of our full-time staff is on light duty, having suffered from an injury while shoveling snow on an earlier storm last year. Overall, my staff has been comfortable in a relative sense with all of what we've been doing. In the hybrid mode, thinking of fully open, we've had a lot of talks. They have one-on-one and talk to me as well too, and they're nervous about the potential risk to themselves to more exposure to COVID with a fully open situation. You heard from both John Safina and Jan Radowitz that we'll need to reconfigure the school in order to fully open. So there's probably, I think in the case of the elementary school, probably less than a day of a couple of people moving some furniture around and setting up other dividers for the students. At the middle school and high school, though, it's a dramatically different situation. I'm going to need to bring out of the basement probably a good 100 desks and chairs that are a combination of being in the basement and one of the storage trailers. I have some 60 tables and 120 chairs that are going to have to be moved from where they are now back into their original classroom. So I have quite a bit of work ahead of me whenever we decide to plan and make that happen. So depending on how that falls and when, I could end up needing additional help to make that happen. And doing it during the winter, obviously, we always have the risk of working around the storms, which could impact the need for even more additional help in order to reconfigure the middle and high school. I do want to remind you that I spent probably somewhere between 6 and 7 of weeks worth of me being the substitute for the day custodian, where I was covering basically from around 7 to noon, and then bringing in a second shift person to work and pick things up at that point in time so I could get back and try and scratch through some of my office work. So that's all I have for you at the moment. Thank you.
The other thing is I want the board for a minute to go to page 115 because Bob and Nate did a comparison salaries for the custodials. So please be aware that the difference in the local area,
It's pathetic.
okay? All right. Bob, do you want to say anything about that?
Yeah, I would like to.
Great.
Yeah, okay. Out of my current custodian staff, I have 2 people that have worked over 12 years. And in doing that, they basically are, they've gotten additional pay when we've gotten pay increases, but they really fall short of what they're being paid currently, as well as obviously the rest of the staff. But thinking about the longevity of 2 people over 12 years and not making near any of our neighbors is quite a differential. I think it probably contributes to trying to find somebody for even substitute help. And I had asked Nathan to do a calculation of what an hourly rate would be of salary and benefits combined. And just for a reference point, that would equal about $15.65.
Just want
And
everybody
that's based on a current salary table.
I think the reason that Doug and Bob injected that in there is that's part of the issue regarding staffing. The board was kind enough, and we try to have some foresight, whether we were, whatever we were in, whether we brought back half the students or all of the students, we knew that we'd have to have cafeteria help. And we have not been, since the beginning of the school year, we haven't secured someone. So I mentioned to Bob when it came to part-time to include the retirement and the health insurance for part-time because they don't get paid that. And from a morale standpoint, let the full-time people know that that would be the case because they obviously can't do all the work. Even he's stressed out as far as the hybrid goes. So, so with that being said, just the permission of the board to have a differential in pay to offer part-time custodians the pay differential and include the what it would cost us beyond their ordinary pay so that we might attract more. We tried the same thing with subs and we're paying them $115. The board was kind enough. We had the foresight. And even despite that, we've been having a hard time trying to get them on board. It's just supply and demand. A lot of instances in area schools, the reason that they can't even go hybrid or in full is they don't have the folks to work with the kids, the staff to work with the kids. So with that being said, real briefly, do we have the approval of the board to adjust the pay for people that come in that way? Doug, so what we're looking for is improvement of the board to go forth as far as that's concerned.
I think we need to do a little more research before we make that decision, what the amounts are gonna be. And to make sure we're running into an issue even now. I don't think we should, that's up to the board.
I think we need to get through what we're doing now.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, I totally agree that these figures are ridiculous. And I know that when we actually adjusted their salaries, a couple of years ago, and there was a chart, I mean, I know that I had looked at all of the different towns and what their starting salaries were, et cetera. We at least gave them a differential for second shift, but they're still very, very low.
Sorry, Peg, I was, Doug, I was saying just the part-timers. We weren't looking to do anything as far, at this point, as far as the full-timers, but just as far as the part-timers go. But we could wait on that rather than we've got a lot to go on here. Okay, so should I go on to the next one?
Earl,
Yeah, yeah. Well, say that again, Peg, I'm sorry.
I said, finish what we are talking about, opening school, and then work on this as a separate thing. I mean, I'm not saying that I totally understand, that I don't totally understand what Bob is saying about having a difficult time hiring people, but I think we need to look at what are we going to do with everything else first.
Agreed. Okay. Tim, can you go with your part?
I will gladly go with my part. So first of all, I'd like to just certainly put out to the board, I certainly feel your pain of what you are going through and what you have to decide, being on a school board myself, and dealing with, hearing from the school, hearing from the parents, the good and the bad. It is a lot of restless nights, so I certainly feel your pain. But moving on to my report, basically, transportation has been running pretty much the same, other than the biggest restriction is the spacing on the buses. And because of the spacing, as you can see on the last page of the report, is the projected numbers that we're going to have riding the bus if we're full in. And because of that, we wouldn't be able to stay with the 4 current routes for our regular bus routes. We would have to add 1 additional route in order to get all the students in and still maintain that spacing. So with that being said, we may also, depending on special ed, of course this is a what if situation, any additional students we may have to hire out, just again because of the spacing on the buses. My staff has been fantastic as far as coming in when needed. I can tell you that the majority of them are ready to rock and roll with whatever we put forward, whether it's full in or the hybrid that we've been doing. But when I had mentioned the full in, there were a couple that have come to me and voiced some concern that with a full bus load, they could be, they're a tad bit nervous. So, but as I've said all along, again, my staff has been coming in, and life has been good. But certainly if I start losing any of the staff due to sickness of whatever, we potentially could be in a pickle there, and would have to go and either cancel a route or combined routes. And as far as the plan, just to back up a bit, I did look at trying to do split routes, which basically we go out, pick up 1 group of kids, bring them to school, and then go out and get a second group with the current fleet that we've got. Then with that particular model, we run into issues as far as timing. So not only would the buses be running later, at the beginning of the day and at the end of the day, we'd run into some issues there. So there is some consideration to be given on either direction. We don't, unfortunately, have anybody banging the door down to become bus drivers right now. So I think it would be very tough to fill that fifth position. So we may have to look at getting super creative on getting the students in more than what we've already looked at. But that's kind of my report in a nutshell.
Tim, I want to be correct about page 85. So if they go fully open, possibly looking at an additional cost of anywhere from $8,000 to $47,000 for the rest of the year of 2020 and 2021. Is that correct?
Right, with and that's hiring a driver with their benefits and everything included. So that would be the cost in order to get that additional driver.
Now, would you have a bus for that bus driver to drive?
We do have a bus.
Are those numbers included in the $245,000?
Emily, ask the question, is that included in the 245 figure?
No, I just looked, Doug, and it's not there.
So it's additional money then?
Right, and if you're looking at both of his bullets, the first one would be a driver for 20,000, and then if we had more special ed students, then we'd have to hire more outside contractors. I can't see you over there.
Right, like I said,
where you are.
the special ed piece is kind of a what if. So I wanted to at least include that so that you knew that if we do get additional students or placements change or what have you, we would have to hire those out.
Right.
Just so there's no surprise.
Okay, yep, something else that I'm looking at, Tim, on the front page, you have a comment that buses can hold up to 26 people. And then on the back page of 85, you have the number of students on each one of the buses for the middle, high, and elementary. And there's only, well, there are two that are less than 26. So it's 26 what you've been doing with only half the kids going to school?
We've
I'm
actually
sorry.
been doing the 3 feet 26 all along. We didn't go with the 6 feet because that would have put us down to 13 students per bus. And when we were making the plan back over the summer, we realized that that could not happen.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
I've been concerned about the extra money, Doug, and, you know, just keeping the semi-distance on the buses for the kids.
Now, we've heard everything. Now, does anybody have any questions?
Nurses.
Oh, the nurses, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Doug, yeah, the Sue and Dawn.
Hello. So I'm just going to start off by going over just how the numbers look currently in regards to the kind of chart that the state recommends you look at when you transition between models. So you can actually now get more information per town and not have to look at just the county numbers, which is nice. And I do have to say that Susan and I went over all this today to plug in the new numbers. They were different by the time Jan looked, and I looked right before the meeting, and they were up again. So for Milton, the level of transmission is currently substantial. It's substantial for Stafford County as well as the state as a whole. The new cases per 100,000 over the last 14 days for Milton is 894. Hospitalizations, I do not calculate for Milton, but the 7-day total test positivity rate for the town of Milton is currently 18.6, which is substantial. When we looked earlier today, it was 16.2, so it's increased. The number of current active cases is now 29, for a total of 137. When I gave the numbers at the last meeting, we had a total of 47, which I think the last meeting was December 9th. So the total cumulative cases in Milton has just about tripled just in the last month. So again, the chart goes by, you look at whichever is the highest of the transmission as well as the school impact. So the transmission for Milton is substantial, both the positivity rate and just the number of cases per 100,000. For the school impact, as they've said, just for different, different schools and special ed and other departments, I mean, everyone really is saying the staff is strained. So that would put the level of school impact at medium. So if you have a medium school impact and a substantial transmission, the model actually recommends that we should be remote. The model does have flexibility, that you could be more or less restrictive depending on, factors, including if you have enough staff and, what the numbers in town are, the resources and all those things. So for instance, this is telling us that we should be remote, but we've been, functioning as a hybrid for quite some time with similar numbers and impact and such. And that's been working for us. So that's something that, obviously could still happen. But if you're looking just at the numbers and at this model, and it is for Milton, it would say that we should be remote.
Okay, I do have a question for you.
Yeah.
And in our quarantining, are we following the 14 days or the 10 days?
So for the quarantine, the state changed it to 10 days. So that's what, when we were having students out, they were doing the 10 days.
What about the staff? What are they following?
The staff, so there's been some question with the staff. When I have had, since the change, the staff that I have had that has been out, there was a couple and they were out the 10 days, because they were able to come back within that, and they wanted to come back. So I know there's some question about the 14 days, but the last one that I dealt with was out for the 10.
Thank you. Earl?
Okay, so, I'm
sorry.
sorry.
Peg's got a question.
I did not hear the very end of, and I think that it sounded like Dawn, but I didn't hear the very end of what she said. I mean, I got town, substantial transmission, school impact, medium, but then I missed everything after that, please.
Sure. So then you plug that into the chart that they have, and when you put in a medium school impact and a substantial level of transmission, it recommends, based on this model, that Milton should be remote. And it does state that you can be more or less restrictive if the resources, all the various factors that everyone has gone over, such as spacing and staffing and, doing everything you can to be as safe as possible. It says you can be less restrictive. So for instance, it's saying we're remote, but if based on everything, it's been similar. I mean, the numbers are going higher, but the impact and for the transmission and the staffing has been pretty steady in terms of just medium and substantial for quite a while. So if we've been working successfully in a hybrid model with those two levels.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That was right.
Okay, Doug, so suffice to say,
I think you
Oh,
have
I
one
think
more.
Susan has something.
You forgot
I'm
Susan.
sorry. Susan, I'm sorry.
We can't hear you, Sue.
Can't hear you.
Still can't hear you.
She's been having some technical difficulties, so I can try to cover what she was going to say. So she was just going to update. So the vaccine has started to roll out in New Hampshire. Right now, it's still in 1A, which is the first phase, and it's primarily like long-term care and healthcare workers. The school staff, they are right now going to start between March and May. So anytime between March and May, that's when the appointments open up, and they're still working on exactly how it's going to work for like school staff and the general public who may qualify, just because it's kind of a process where you have to like the School Nurse Association kind of nominated us as eligible, and then you get an email, then you have to set up another email, and then you have to schedule. So we're not sure how that's going to work. But anytime between March and May, teachers will become eligible to get vaccinated. You do have to have a booster 28 days later, and then you have to wait 14 days before you're considered fully vaccinated. So it kind of is a 6-week process once you are able to get that first appointment. Let me just go back. We had a thing that we were doing together. Let me look at that. And just the other thing, you know, that she was going to mention is just some of the things they've already gone over. Like for mask breaks, I know that it was mentioned going outside, but sometimes going outside isn't feasible as many times as we'd like to see just because of weather. And when you have the younger students especially, they need to, you know, get all dressed and undressed in their winter gear just to make sure that they're warm enough when they're outside. So, and also just having more kids in a small space, there's just more potential for exposure. And then, you know, related quarantine if that happens. Does anyone have any questions about that?
I think I'm seeing double as Sue, is that true?
What? Sue?
And I don't,
Susan?
and I don't drink.
I think she's trying to use her phone now maybe to do it.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Yay! Oh my gosh. Dawn just about covered everything. We were going to say the second vaccine is scheduled for 1 month after the first dose, with immunity occurring 14 days later. It's possible that some school staff might not even get their first dose until May. Updates from the state this week indicate that fully vaccinated staff, or if you've tested positive within 90 days, you no longer need to quarantine if exposed to a positive case. Again, becoming fully vaccinated takes about 6 weeks. Even then, people who are fully vaccinated or previously infected need to continue to practice physical distancing, avoid social groups, gatherings, and wear a face mask when in public places and facilities.
Tammy?
Are the staff going to be required to take this, or can they opt out of it?
I mean, the vaccine itself, that's not something that we could answer, but I do have to say that there are, you know, different scenarios where people should not get the vaccination depending on allergies and histories and things like that.
Well, right, but I guess I'm asking the school system. No, thank you. I do appreciate what you said. Because people can opt out of it if they want to. So I guess I was asking, is it going to be required for teachers to take it or not?
Okay, I can answer that. That is something we haven't even discussed really, and that would have to be discussions with the teachers union and so forth. So it's not a simple answer right now.
Thank you.
No way.
I'll never vote yes on it.
Well, if we're done this, I just want to bring something up. If we're done all the discussion.
I don't know yet. Are we done with discussing this?
Yes, all I wanted to say in culmination to conclude is that you have heard from the entire administrative staff. They all concur that at the current time, due to expenses, staffing, and being safe for students and staff, as the nurses said, they feel that the hybrid will give us the consistency that we have had.
Now, Paul, are you still on the same subject, or you changed?
That's exactly what I was gonna say, is maybe making a motion to, because the money, the lack of teachers, custodians, all that, staying hybrid for the third quarter and revisiting going full for the fourth quarter based on numbers.
Now, what is the dates on that?
Well, whenever third quarter ends, I know it starts February 1st, I don't know when it ends.
Well, the quarters are gonna, I think MES, a third, and the high school and the middle school, a quarter. Is that correct? The date's the same?
No, we're.
They do trimesters.
That's what I thought. But we're in, the other is in quarters.
I think it's more important for the cap, the calendar for the courses, and the credits that they do at the high school, we put it back to the quarters.
Right.
Okay. Now, what's the date on that, Jan? It's being looked up.
So going to hybrid from February 1st till that end date, but before that, make a determination of fourth quarter. If numbers are down and everything's looking good, they can at least finish out the year full-time.
See, no, come on. Sorry.
April 9th, February 1st to April 9th.
I bother going back at that. I know, right? Not even worth it.
Okay.
Go ahead and Peg had her hand up.
I would make a second, or I will second.
No, I want to be clear on his motion.
Okay.
So I'm just gonna bring it up in light of what we've heard, make a motion to go back to hybrid from February 1st to April 9th, which is the equivalent of third quarter for the high school and middle school. But in the meantime, if things change, the option is on the table to go back full-time when we can, you know?
Okay, I understand.
Look at it again by then, and not just say, okay, well, we're voting for the rest.
Okay, I have no problem with your motion, but what are we gonna do the rest of January?
Well,
Hybrid.
Right, yeah, we stated going hybrid until the first anyway.
Okay, all right, I just want to be clear on that.
Yep, that was already already done.
Make your motion.
I did.
Make it clear for me.
From starting Monday?
Starting, yeah, well,
Just
starting this
Monday.
coming Monday until April 9th, staying hybrid.
And I will second that motion.
Do you have that, Tammy?
Yep,
She's shaking her head.
Right, I lost my eye, that's it. Okay, all right. Okay, all right, do we have any discussion? We do have another issue we need to discuss about that, though.
I just don't see what's going to change in, I don't, in a quarter, no one's gonna be like, oh yeah, it's okay to be closer together. So the issue to me is that you're saying we can't afford it. So to me, I'm always like, well, then let's go back to the drawing table and figure out how to afford it. And potentially, and even look at all options, including not having a remote option. But I mean, we're gonna, that's just my 2 cents, but we can vote on it.
But I think we have light at the end of the tunnel, okay? The fact that the vaccines are coming, okay?
And it's not only just the money, it's the staffing, by both principals have said that staffing is going to be the problem. And I don't want straining staff to make it even worse for the students when they can't, if something happens and 2 staff members end up going out on top of us already being short. We're making it work right now. And we looked at it again for the third quarter. We all got together tonight and said, okay, let's look at it for third quarter. Not gonna happen. Okay, let's look at it again to have it on or before the fourth quarter. I mean, we have to keep pressing on with, trying to find a solution, but right now, it's not a feasible solution. This coming from someone with 4 students at home learning, I'm ready to strangle.
You shouldn't, you just said that on national TV.
That's okay, I'll say it again. We're national?
You want to be now?
It's going on YouTube.
I will strangle them, I'll say it again.
Okay, all right. Okay, we got a motion. I lost my train of thought. Do I have any more discussion? Okay. So we're gonna go hybrid until April 9th, the quarter. And John said he can work around that, but no problem. Okay. Paul? Peg?
Aye.
Melissa?
No.
Aye. Okay. Okay, moving on. Oh, we gotta go back to financials, don't we? Messed it all up. Okay, Paige,
We let some people, nurses and things?
Nurses
Yeah,
can go.
thank you, Paul. Yeah, the nurses can go.
Tim can go. Bob needs to stay. Thank you, ladies, very much.
Thank you, Sue, Dawn, and Timmy.
I know this wasn't an easy subject to deal with, okay? I listened to everybody. I want to thank everybody for their opinions. All right, going to financials. The operating budget, page 1439. Everybody viewed it? Peg heard?
Of course, Peg heard. Everything that I had looked at before, you know, some of it changed, my mistake, something had been, I was thinking correctly, made it fix it. However, my first and only question this month was the increase for the school board auditor, that I really, and I did send that on to Nate as a question. So Nate, you want to answer your infinite wisdom, please?
For the auditor, it's just, the encumbrance was over, it was over encumbered.
Yeah, thank you. And that was it, because I thought that they had given us a break.
Yeah, they did.
So good?
So far, yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So we're all set with this report?
Yep.
Moving on. Okay, the monthly grant report, that's page 42. Oh, I got it. Sorry.
Hey, Earl, that's very loud.
Okay, revenue, page 40 and 41. Everybody do that?
Already did.
We're on page 42. Right, and 46 is the monthly grant report for 2012-01 to 20 to 12/31/20. Any questions? Okay, setting it down. Okay, Treasury report for July 2020. That's page 47 to 50. I'm going to need a motion to approve this.
I'll make a motion to approve the treasurer's, reconciliation report.
Second.
Do you have any questions on it? Oh? Okay.
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Emily?
Aye.
Douglas, aye, passes. Okay, page 51 and 52 has to do with food services for October of 2020. Any questions? Moving on. Okay, food services for November 20th for page 53 to 54. Food services again for November 20th, 2020. Any questions? Moving on. Okay. Let me see. Okay, that takes care of, get that stuff. Page 56 to 59 is trust fund amounts by monthly. We got September. That was in the wrong. Looks like 110. That's longer, that one. And then 11/20 to 11/30/2020. Any questions? One of those reports went from January 1st to November 31st, 2020. Any questions? Okay, Nate, on page 61, guess that's some money for vegetables and fruits?
Yeah, one of the SAUs, I'm not sure which one, but declined having what they were allotted for fresh fruits and vegetables. So it was put in a pot and divvied up to everyone else. So we got an additional $1,042.34 in the fresh fruits and vegetables program.
Do we need to accept that as a vote, or we all set?
I'm sorry, did you say something?
Yeah, do we need to vote to accept this, or we're all set?
You're all set.
Okay, moving on. Okay, page 86 is just an FYI, but it's saying, I asked the question, Jan so graciously provided it. I asked how many students are between MES and new families, kids in both schools. It's 58. Okay, COVID expenses, page 87 and 88, it's an FYI, I've already talked about it before. Now, page 89, 100 deals with the little schoolhouse up on Newt Ridge. Should have all the deeds and everything to be viewed. We gotta make a determination. You wanna put that on later, give us more chance to read it, what we're gonna do, accept it. I think what we need to do before we accept anything, I think we gotta take a walk and see what that building exactly needs.
But Doug, it doesn't come with the land.
No, it doesn't.
So what are we expected to do? Move the building?
That is a good question.
Yes. Because if we're expected to move the building, we can't afford that. I don't even think we can afford to revamp the building itself. And why would we?
Emily and
Yeah.
Paul,
Has anyone asked if the church is fine with us leaving it there?
it doesn't belong to the church.
Or who has the land?
They're not using it anymore. It was deeded,
But who-
used, now they're not gonna use it
Right.
anymore, so it comes back to us.
So the land,
The
who's it?
land belongs to the Wentworth. In the deed.
Oh, the Wentworth or the Wentworth
It's a family.
family? Well, if they didn't mind if the church used it, perhaps they wouldn't mind if we used it either.
But, I mean,
That's what I'm saying. Have we asked this question?
well, that's what I'm bringing it up for. What do we want
Because,
to
yeah, to
do?
move it seems a little silly,
I
but.
didn't say anything about moving it.
No.
I think we have a lot more investigation to do before we make any decision.
Well, it's also in this email too saying that it's not feasible about tearing this thing down. I mean, geez, we'd be better off doing an auction for it. I mean, someone could buy the building for whatever and move it themselves and we'd take the money for it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still a good building, it's a historic building, you know, but this is kind of like cut and dry. We're either gonna take it or you're gonna tear it down. Let's back off a little bit.
I'm not advocating any of that. I'm
I know, but that's a business thing.
Yeah. Al?
What are you talking about?
So you go down Youth Road, the church, right after the church is this little white building. It is now ours.
Well, no, not technically.
Well, it will be,
If we accept it.
we accept it. So that's what they're doing. So they're like, well, if you don't want it, we gotta tear it
But
down.
part of the issue is the land is not ours. So that is why I'm saying before we have a long conversation about if we move it, can't we
Is
just
there a
ask?
timeline?
Yeah.
Yeah, what's the timeline?
I've got what you got right here.
So you know, okay.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
We need to talk, meet, discuss.
All right, so that's something for
I'm not advocating anything.
different meeting.
Well, I'm bringing it to you. Now, okay, that takes care of this. Now, Paul, you're up. Because you're going on the 23rd, and you have your resolutions. So you want to come up to the mic?
No, I'm okay on the mic. So I've read through the resolutions, and I would make a recommendation that we go with the NHSBA on the way that they support the resolutions as we go with them, whether they support it or not. I don't know if people have read those yet. If they have questions, comments, or concerns, we can address them. But usually in the past years, we've been pretty much on par with what the School Board Association recommends.
So you want to do a blanket?
I'll go forward with what they recommend, and we'll just, that's what I'll present on the 23rd. I make a motion that we go with what the School Board Association recommends on the resolution.
Second.
Does anybody? That was easy.
Yep.
Okay, is any discussion? Tammy, you got that?
Doug, I have one thing.
Go ahead.
Paul usually gets food there, a lunch, but it's by Zoom. So I'm
Yeah, he
gonna
knows
buy
that.
him lunch at the Nook. He
Who's
can
the
pick up
alternate?
lunch at the Nook and I'll,
Yeah, this is a Zoom meeting, so I'm just gonna hang out and watch it on Zoom.
All right, thanks. Okay. All right. So we all set? Everybody's in agreement with that? You got that, Tammy?
Yeah.
Okay, I can't see. Okay,
Yes, I
Paul?
do. Yes, I do.
Thank you. Peg?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Emily?
Aye.
It's okay, passes.
Oh, we can agree.
Okay. Keep track of myself here. Okay, the record stuff's for, Bob, I think Bob needs to say, well, do we want to do that one in non-public about the issues with the fire alarm at MES?
No, but I think we need to do this one.
I don't know if that's your choice.
So you want to talk about it?
I can.
You talk. Go ahead.
Doug, I think that's fine. I think everybody should know what's up there.
Well, all I'm doing is, I have no problem with that, I'm just asking the question.
Okay.
Go ahead, Bob.
All right. Yeah, I wanted to update you on the installation of the new fire alarm system at the Milton Elementary School. The project started on December 28th with the objective of saving all of the parts that we pulled from that system to be able to use when we might need them going forward at the middle and high school. So all those parts are compatible, and it gives us a source of parts, because the whole reason we're doing this fire alarm project, and we'll schedule newts as well, is because it's difficult to get parts and they're very expensive when you can even find them. As work has progressed since the 28th, it was going pretty good that week for probably a good half of last week. And then as we started getting deeper into using some of the old wiring where it went in old places within the building, very often throughout the day and every day the last several days, we've been literally moving 3 steps forward only to go 2 steps backwards, and then have a tremendous amount of troubleshooting work to do. So at this point in time, we are behind schedule. We had originally hoped to complete the installation yesterday, optimistically with having the successful test with the fire alarm, the fire department today. And as we're working now, the alternate day would have been to be able to test with the fire department on Friday, and we will not be able to meet that date. So I have the dilemma of needing to continue the elementary school to be remote next week in order to complete the installation and get the test done with the fire department.
Okay, can I stop you? Did you hear that, John? Yeah. Okay, go ahead, Bob. Oh, you did? Okay, sorry. Okay. All right, go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, so that's basically it. I did want to say one event happened last night, though, that not everyone may be aware of, but we had left the building at the end of the day, nearing around, I don't know, 4:30-ish or so. Fire alarm was left on because we've been using the new system to help debug everything, obviously, as we would move along. And ultimately, the system gave a false alarm for fire fire alarm for detector, which ended up rolling the fire department. So they checked the whole building and there wasn't an issue, which then obviously then it was a false alarm. So we had to reset some stuff on the system last night to get us through the night, and then we started again today actually troubleshooting right from when the day started. So I wanted you to know about that event.
Does anybody have any questions for Bob? I guess they're happy with that, Bob, so I guess we got no choice.
Yeah.
No, we
Thank
don't.
you.
No.
Okay, go ahead.
We're gonna be closed next week, I'll work with Rose tomorrow. And, we'll come up with some correspondence to our families. Let them know.
Okay. Thank you, John. Anybody else want John?
Could you repeat what he said? We couldn't hear him.
He's gonna send the notices out to the parents that we're gonna be MES closed next week.
Well, no, we're not next week.
Remote, I'm sorry, there you go. Remote. It'll be taken care of. Okay, committee, board member reports? Pegard?
Budget committee, just if nobody is aware, the public hearing for the school and town budgets will be this coming Saturday, the 16th at Town Hall, starting at 9 o'clock. I'm not so sure how many people are going to be able to be in there because Town Hall is basically by appointment only, but we've been informed that people can be out in the hallway if they need to come and talk. So, anyway, just FYI.
I think it's 4 in the chambers and 10 in the hallway. Per the notice.
Is there a remote option for that?
It is being viewed through the,
Yeah, whatever their online system is, it was not working the last time going to YouTube. But did you get the notice with the information, the, agenda? I can send the agenda out if you wanna at least call in, because that basically is the only thing that can happen, is if people call in. Okay? It's not Zoom. Do you have it? Yeah. Oh, you're good.
Good. Just iron me. There's gonna bite my finger.
Okay, and the
We're done.
telephone number is not on here to call in.
Please call in. We want to hear from you.
But you gotta figure out how to find us.
So I will send the agenda and the information out to everybody on the school board concerned, so they can respond if there are any questions, but, I mean, everything, their approval of the budget, our budget anyway, was so smooth that I'm not getting a lot of questions from the townspeople.
Challenge accepted.
all right. Any public comments? Yeah,
I just want to say from a librarian standpoint, thank you to Bob Adams and his team. We had a day that heating system wasn't working in the library. It was a Saturday. I called him up. He got the team right in there. They came in and serviced it all as well. So it was great to be able to call him and work together to do that. Avoided a much larger problem by doing that. So it's great having a good working relationship between the two buildings and the same property.
that it? Okay, I'll need a motion to go to non-public.
Second.
Go non-public.
Second?
Second.
I think Emily
First.
did.
52.
Okay, the under RSA 91A, 32, A, B, C, L, J, and K. And,
I think he means I.
okay,
There.
Bob is there. Paul?
Aye.
Okay?
Aye.
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 So we're in none.
Motion to adjourn or adjourn, out of here.
See ya.
Who was the other one? Who seconded it?
I did one.
Okay,
We're all voting with our
Aye.
bodies, aye. Aye.
adjourned.
Aye, aye, aye. Aye, aye. Aye, aye.
What,
Aye.
I mean, Emily,
Aye.
I heard